Welcome back to Taiwan versus the world. A very soft power episode today. We'll talk to people who work on projecting Taiwan's positive image globally. First, we talk with Dafydd and Matej Šimalčík about books that tell Taiwan's story to the world in a compelling way. Then we'll look into how to report on Taiwan's economy worldwide and why it's important to talk about more than just semiconductors. This is soft power diplomacy on Taiwan versus the world. So today we're going to do something a bit different, sort of a book review, or to be more accurate, a book preview. There is a new book about Taiwan called Contemporary Taiwan, subtitled More Than a Flashpoint. This in itself indicates that it's going to be a different kind of book. There's lots of books about Taiwan, so let's hope we are going to read something different today. So I'm talking with two of the people who were involved in the book, which are Dafydd and Matej Šimalčík. I hope I'm pronouncing this right.
Yeah, hi, you're pronouncing it very well.
Wonderful, thank you very much. Can I ask both of you to introduce yourself?
So my name is Dafydd. I'm at SOAS, School of Oriental and African Studies, the University of London, where I run the Center of Taiwan Studies. And I've been running this program or being involved in this program for well over 20 years. But I'm also a former resident of Taiwan. I spent about 10 years in Taiwan as a student, as a language teacher, and later as a researcher.
My name is Matej Šimalčík. I'm the executive director of Central European Institute of Asian Studies, a regional think tank focusing on Europe-Indo-Pacific relations, where we've recently, in the past few years, focused quite strongly on Europe's relations with Taiwan and the role of the Central and Eastern European countries in that relationship. I come from a legal background and IR background, and over this course of this year, I've been residing in Taipei. So I'm this year a recipient of the Taiwan Fellowship. So I've been doing a little bit of on-ground research as well, being hosted at the Institute of National Defense and Security Research.
So, Dafydd and Matej, you were both part of the team that worked on the book. I think a lot of people were involved. Dafydd, can you tell me what role you played and who else was working on the book?
So my role was as the book series editor. So this book was published as part of the Routledge Research on Taiwan book series. And so that was my role. So I wasn't particularly involved in putting this together, but more encouraging Christina and her colleagues to put the book together. And then I work on promoting these books.
I think you're mentioning here Krystyna Kironska, am I right?
Yes.
So Krystyna was the main editor on the project?
She worked together with a colleague.
Matej, can you tell me about the process and how you got involved into working in it?
Yeah, so maybe also let me explain what our overall work distribution was a little bit more. So as was mentioned, there were two lead editors on this book, my colleagues Krystyna Kironska and Ewonika Rejtova-Young, who are both of them my colleagues in the Central European Institute of Asian Studies, a Central European think tank that deals with Europe's relations with the Indo-Pacific region. The book has a little bit of a history, right? Because it's came about first as a book in Slovak language, something that was catering to the demand of the Slovak readers at the time, when we've seen growing interest in Slovakia on anything related to Taiwan, as the relationship was taking off during the COVID-19 pandemic, right? So at the time, we put together the first version of this book in Slovak language. Interestingly, the book was produced as a mostly crowdfunded project. So the readers themselves funded preparation of the first book that we've written on Taiwan, right? And the book was fairly successful within Slovakia as a commercial product, following after our previous book that was dealing with China. Afterwards, we've decided that we would actually like to translate this book into English and give it an update, as the relations with Taiwan and Taiwan's global position is something that's evolving quite dynamically. So that's when Dafydd and his book series at Rutledge came in, and we've prepared a translated and updated version of the manuscript that was later published by Rutledge as a sort of textbook for modern Taiwan studies. So sort of outlining the basic aspects of Taiwan that everyone who wants to know more about the country should know, right? And that's also where the title sort of comes in, right? We often hear Taiwan being talked about only in geopolitical terms. You might recall many international magazine or newspaper having headlines solely focusing on the Taiwan Strait conflict, the rising tensions in the region, forgetting the actual agency of Taiwan, that it's actually a country with people that live here and have their daily lives, and we should maybe know something more than that, than just the geopolitics of the country.
One of the things I would add is that the book is part of a kind of a growing trend to publish books for a more general books on Taiwan for more general readership. I think in the maybe about a decade or so ago, the academic literature on Taiwan was really excellent, but I think we have a big gap in more kind of general reader books, trying to reach beyond academic readership. So that's one of the reasons why we were quite excited about this book. I think another thing that is quite important from my perspective as an international Taiwan studies scholar is it reflects the real growth of Taiwan studies in Eastern and Central Europe, which I think has been really quite impressive. There's a number of Taiwan-centered programs in for example, the Czech Republic, in Poland, and we've held a number of really large Taiwan studies conferences in Poland, Czech Republic as well. So it's an exciting time for East and Central European Taiwan studies.
Thank you. And Dafydd, I understand the book is part of a collection. Can you tell me more about this collection, how you initiated it and why?
So we created the Taiwan book series back in 2009. Part of it was a little bit of a risky move at first, because a number of other book series on Taiwan had kind of faded away or closed by that stage. But we were quite optimistic about the market for Taiwan studies academic books. We saw how vibrant the European Taiwan studies field was. So we set it up, and we're coming up to the 50th volume published over the last 15 years. And we kind of publish on a broad range of topics. This year we have about I think 6 or 7 books coming out, covering in addition to this book, we have a book on Taiwanese poetry that's come out this year. We have another one on Taiwan dance, one on Taiwan anthropology, one on the history of the semiconductor industry. So we cover social science and humanities.
And Dafydd, you mentioned that you also have a book yourself, which is going to be published shortly, right?
Yes, that's something I'm quite excited about. Although it's not published in this series, it's a history of Taiwan's sugar railways. So something very different from what I normally do. I tend to publish books on Taiwan's elections and political parties. But this time I decided to go for something a little bit close to my heart. So really looking at the history of these really extraordinary railways, which were really central to life in southern and central Taiwan for much of the 20th century.
So here's a question for both of you. There's a lot of books about Taiwan. There's a lot of media also talking about Taiwan. So I almost want to ask, why making more books? What makes these books different from what we usually hear?
Well, I would say that despite the growing trend of having more media coverage and more books about Taiwan, there's still a lot of persisting myths and coverage that treats Taiwan as a sort of addendum to the broader, bigger picture geopolitical questions of the potential China-US conflict and issues related to that, right? Taiwan itself and the people of Taiwan are not really central in the narratives of many publications, especially in the media publications. So I think that this really warrants that we keep paying attention to Taiwan in our publications across a range of approaches, from purely scholarly books to pop science books and something in between, where our book sort of falls in as a textbook, right? So what we hope to achieve with our book is that it really becomes a go-to resource, especially for students who are venturing on the path of studying Taiwan, and that they will have a companion book that will be a sort of basic reference point to many aspects of Taiwan beyond the geopolitical questions.
Yeah, let me follow up on that question. I think that you're right that I think the amount of material on Taiwan is very impressive at the moment, including blogs, the new encyclopedia of Taiwan studies. But I think books do have an important role to play. I think that what we're trying to do is to reach different types of readership. So, for example, Christina's book, I agree, is one that is really quite unique in terms of being able to reach a more general audience that maybe doesn't have so much background on Taiwan. In the case of my new book, I'm also trying to reach kind of quite diverse readerships, because I framed the book as one that would be interesting both to readers interested in railway or industrial railway history, but also for Taiwanese readers. And I think that one of the things I find quite interesting is that with the book series itself, we do kind of reach Taiwanese readerships. Our works are cited in Taiwan. So one of the things I really quite enjoy with the books that I've published on Taiwan is actually bringing them to Taiwan, doing book talks in Taiwan. And I'm pretty hopeful this will be the same for Matej and Christina's book, that I think often Taiwanese readers are quite interested in European perspectives on Taiwan.
It is interesting, actually, Dafydd, what you are saying, because indeed you're writing a book here about railways in Taiwan. It would appear as a niche topic. But then again, I think we discussed that also in private. There is actually quite a big community worldwide of people who are interested in railways. It's like actually quite a frequent hobby all around the world. So is this a way also to little by little reach people who maybe would not care about Taiwan, but rather than waiting for them to come to Taiwan, we go in their world, in their little niche, and we bring Taiwan to them?
Yes, I would agree with that. I think that those of us that do international Taiwan studies, we just have to find different ways or angles to make people interested and aware of Taiwan. So in this case, in this book, Twilight Years of Taiwan's Sugar Railways, what I've done is to publish in a specialist railway publisher in the UK. So I need to kind of convince them, these kind of European railway enthusiasts, that Taiwan really is a unique case. Because we tend to think with Taiwan Railways, we think about Alishan, but together with my Taiwanese co-author, we tried to make the case that Taiwan did have at its peak the world's most extraordinary industrial railway, a railway system that was actually longer than the national railway system, a railway system that connected the fields to the sugar mills to the port. So we make the argument that this was part of Taiwan's economic miracle, because sugar exports made up something like 70 to 80% of Taiwan's exports in its kind of peak years. But we also try to make the case that this was very important culturally for Taiwan. If you lived in southern and central Taiwan in those for most of the 20th century, basically the sight and sound of these sugar trains was unavoidable because that network was so diverse. And I think that's why we hear about these sugar railways within Taiwanese cultural products. For example, they feature in Taiwanese literature, for example, in Li Ang's writing, or in Taiwanese music, folk music, for example, the music of Chen.
It is quite interesting, Dafydd, that you are focusing on. What comes to my mind when you mention Alishan is that there's actually interesting connection between the Alishan Railway and Central Europe, right? Because the narrow gauge forest railway is a very, very unique thing, right? And we have one in Slovakia, and a few years back, the Alishan Railway and the Čierny Hron Forestry Railway in Slovakia actually formed a sister railway partnership to share best practices on how to take care of this technical heritage and preserve it for the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a really interesting element of Taiwan's kind of unofficial diplomacy. And I think we see Taiwan having these kind of railway diplomacy relationships as you've mentioned, in Central Europe, but also with Japan and with the UK. I know that the Welsh Pool and Llanfair Railway in Wales, they currently have a Taiwan Sugar locomotive, and they've lent one of their locomotives to Taiwan Sugar. I think they also have an Alishan locomotive there in Wales. And I think often this kind of diplomacy also manages to kind of make people that normally would not be aware of Taiwan aware of Taiwan, and I think that's very exciting.
That's a wonderful thing that's happening here, unraveling here right in front of us. That you both actually started engaging on this topic. So it's surprising how anything, even railroads, suddenly create bonds between the two countries. And I would just ask to precise, because maybe our listeners are not aware exactly of what the Alishan Railroad is. Can in your view, explain a bit more?
So the Alishan Railway, as with the sugar railways, emerged during the Japanese colonial period. In the case of the sugar railways, they were basically designed to bring the sugar cane to the mills. And then in the case of the Alishan Railway, its initial reason for building this very difficult line that goes basically from sea level up high into the mountains was forestry and bringing tree trunks down from the mountains to the plains. I think the importance of Alishan later became more of a tourist railway from probably the 1980s onwards. But it's become essentially part of Taiwan's international image. So, for example, in Taiwan tourism taxis, recently I've noticed that they're using the Alishan Railway, or Alishan Mountain Railway, as part of its way of attracting tourists from the UK.
So, Matej, if we can circle back to your book, is this the kind of approach also that you tried to have in your own book, trying to reach a different audience through something more human than the usual geopolitics? And can you give us an example of how you did it?
In essence, I would say yes, even though I'm one of the authors that has written actually the geopolitical chapter on Taiwan. But overall, the book covers a wide range of topics so that different readers can pick and focus on a different aspect of Taiwan that interests them, and sort of hoping that that then sucks them into the broader topic and sparks interest in the overall picture of Taiwan. So the book is centered around several chapters, each posing a different question, essentially focusing on a different aspect of contemporary Taiwan. Geopolitics is only one aspect. Besides that, there's a lots written on Taiwan's economy, how the economy was developing, the human rights of Taiwan, which is a particularly interesting topic, I think, given that Taiwan has its own history with authoritarianism, as well as a successful transition to democracy, which is something that I would say is interesting also from the Central European perspective, given that both Taiwan and Central European countries democratized essentially around the same time period. So that's an interesting point of comparison. There's of course a lot written also on Taiwanese society, like traditions, religion, and how does all of these come into interplay within the broader Taiwanese society. So the way the book is structured is actually that if you are interested in just one aspect of Taiwan, you can just focus on one chapter and leave the rest be if that's not your cup of tea. But we are hoping that once you find interest in one Taiwan related topic, that will then spark interest to continue reading the other chapters that deal with different aspects of contemporary Taiwan.
I'm glad you raised the human side of Taiwan, because I think that that's also one of the ways that when we write about Taiwan, we can kind of attract reader interest. Previously on your program, I talked about my Taiwan Green Party's book, and I think one of the things that readers really enjoyed there was kind of hearing the voices of social movement or environmental activists or party activists. I think bringing in those kind of interview data really kind of makes Taiwan a bit more understandable, and I think that's something that we really need to do. With the Taiwan Sugar Railways book, what my co-author did, because he's a Taiwanese master student who's done a lot of oral histories. And he covers, he's done hundreds of oral histories of retired railway workers. What we do in the book is to try to bring these stories in to kind of shed a kind of a human kind of angle on the history of these railways. And I think that makes it a bit different from a regular railway history book. I think we both try to bring in our own life stories. For example, I talk about how I went about trying to photograph this railway system during my time living in Taiwan in the 1990s, going out on my bicycle to get into the fields. How I would cross these very kind of long railway bridges to get to my photographic location. Even how I was arrested, by a security guard during the process of trying to put this photographic collection together. And the starting point of this book is actually when I'm first in Taiwan in 1990 as a language student, almost accidentally taking a photograph of a sugar train when I'm still 19 as a language student. So in some ways, this is the book that's taken me the longest to write, more than 30 years.
So interestingly, there's actually some danger there's some danger involved when you are reporting about trains. Apparently, you can get arrested by security guards.
Yes, I should have. Yeah, I guess that's often the case when you're trying to photograph industrial railways. Fortunately, the supervisor had experience of railway enthusiasts. So he was quite understandable but the security guard was very suspicious that I was someone involved in industrial espionage. So that was after that, I was much more careful about going into kind of factory premises. So I switched to really kind of more remote photographic locations.
We're collecting a bit of oral history of our own here when we hear the way you worked on this book, Dafydd. That's a very interesting memory to hear from you. Matej, do you have also a memory to share? What is your best memory of working on your own book?
The book, in many ways, is a product of the pandemic, actually, right? Because, as I said, we produced the first version, Slovak edition of the book, towards the end of the pandemic, right? And it was a sort of two-book project that we started working in the very beginning of the pandemic on our China book. It was called Superpower ? Everything you need to know about modern China, because of course China was all of a sudden everywhere on the news during the pandemic, right? And we wanted the public to sort of get a better understanding of what modern China looks like, right? And in that book we included a chapter on Taiwan as well, because that's you can't omit that. But as we were writing that, we realized that we cannot stick only with one chapter that looks at Taiwan through the lens of the Taiwan Strait conflict, right? So that's when, as a product of the terrible times we were living during the pandemic, this wonderful idea came out of it, that we can actually produce something that looks at Taiwan much more holistically and does proper justice to the topic that we wanted to cover, and tell the story of Taiwan to the lay audience that maybe heard about Taiwan here and there, or maybe they know about semiconductors, or maybe they noticed that there was some sort of mutual aid going on between Central European countries and Taiwan during the pandemic, but also didn't learn much more. So I don't know if this is the sort of memory you were hoping for, but it is, I think, quite important part of the story of how this book came to be, given that the whole sort of uptake in the relationship between Central Europe and Taiwan, and even more broadly, Europe as such and Taiwan, is also largely a product of the cooperation that started during the pandemic, as the democratic countries were supporting each other in how to survive through those dark times.
The other thing I would add about Christina Matej's his book is that the original version was published in Slovakia. So it was really aimed at a kind of Slovak audience. But the English version, it's much more than just a translation, because I think it had to be adjusted to a kind of a broader readership. So from my perspective as a book series editor, that was really quite a fascinating kind of process, going through the peer review of the book, and looking at what things needed to be adjusted for perhaps a broader readership. So I'm really delighted with the new English language version, and I'm hoping that they're going to be promoting the book hard, because as someone who's been involved in book publishing as a writer and a series editor, we ideally have to put a lot of effort into promoting our books, doing book talks, because there's just so many books on Taiwan around. So you have to kind of highlight your books if you think they're special. So one of the things I'm very excited about at the moment is I'm going to be coming to Taiwan in December and January to do a series of book talks in non-academic settings. Again, trying to reach some different types of readership and audiences for your book, Matej.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I'm glad that you've liked how the process ended up, because indeed it was not just about translating the book, right? First of all, there was a time gap between the original book and the English version of the book, and so we needed to reflect on whatever has evolved through that time period, as well as adapt some of the parts to make it more palatable to an international audience rather than to just Slovak or Czech audience, right? Which means that also when you insert some anecdotes or comparisons that make the subject relatable to such a small audience, you need to kind of get rid of them and find new examples, right? That would make whatever you are trying to explain something that an international reader reading in English would understand, and that would convey a similar point that you are making in the original text.
Well, these are all very valuable feedback. We keep talking about Christina, so sadly she could not join us today, but let's give her justice. Can you tell me more about her, who she is, and how it was to work with her?
Yeah, I'm sorry that Christina couldn't join us today. Christina is a colleague of mine at the Central European Institute of Asian Studies, where she's one of the co-directors together with me. She is one of our main voices on Taiwan research that we are doing at our lab, as well as her being an academic that focuses on Taiwan studies in the academic environment with Palacký University in Olomouc in Czechia, where she currently is an inaugural Taiwan chair.
The other thing is that, and I should have mentioned that earlier, is that the book is co-edited. The second editor is, I'm not sure if my pronunciation is right, Unica Richova Yang. So a co-edited book, which often is best with edited books because they can be quite hard to put together single-handedly.
Yeah, I've mentioned Eunika in the beginning, but she was also one of the co-editors together with Christina. Eunika is one of our research fellows at CIS, where she also focuses on Taiwan, and she's actually also a long-time resident of Taipei, where she currently lives for the past several years, as well as being a graduate of the Sinology department in Slovakia's university, where she focused on Taiwan.
Dafydd, Matej, thank you so much for being with us today, and wishing good luck to both of your books.
Many thanks.
Thank you, and
be on RTI with you again.
Yeah, thanks, Julien. Thanks for having us, and let's wish that readers find our two books as interesting as we found writing them.
Well said. Thank you, Matej. Reporting on Taiwan for foreign audiences is a challenge. There is a strong focus on war and geopolitics, but Taiwan is more than that. Even reporting on Taiwan's economy is made harder by the overwhelming prominence of the semiconductor industry. But Taiwan needs to be known as a real country with real people active in every aspect of life, not just as a one-trick pony. To explore how Taiwan's story can be told differently, I talked to someone who dedicated his work to reporting on Taiwan's businesses.
My name is Marcel Oppliger. I am a Chilean journalist, currently living in Taipei, where I am the creator and host of a new YouTube channel called Taiwan Edge. And Taiwan Edge's purpose is to promote Taiwan as an innovation hub, as a world-class innovation hub. Taiwan Edge is actually two channels, one in English for the English-speaking audience around the world, and one in Spanish, focused specifically in Latin America and Spain, which is a huge market of more than 600 million people that I think Taiwan would do well to be closer to, because there is a lot of business to be made there.
And Marcel is adamant that Taiwan must be known for more than semiconductors.
To tell you the truth, I have always been impressed, even before coming to Taiwan, with this country's innovation drive. It has been, as you well know, for decades, a leader in several high-end technologies, specifically, or more importantly, semiconductors. But I was aware that a lot of high-end companies that are well-renowned the world over are also Taiwanese, like Asus or Acer or MediaTek or BenQ and many others. But a lot of people don't seem to know that. They maybe think that they are American companies or maybe from other countries in Asia or Europe. And after I decided to move here with my family, I thought that putting that information out in the world was important for Taiwan, and was interesting also for the audience to know that so many very innovative companies are from Taiwan. As a part of my work for Taiwan Edge, I have had to go to many fairs and exhibitions, mostly here in Taipei, really. And I'm amazed by the amount of content and the variety of areas where Taiwanese companies are doing in innovative work. Every week there is a big expo somewhere about it can be semiconductors, it can be biotech, it can be green energy, it can be medicine, it can be like last week, for example, there was the Healthcare Expo 2025 here in Taipei, and it was an amazing expo, 2 floors with over 650 companies. I think in previous years, it's around 150,000 people that go to these fairs. They last, in the case of the Healthcare Expo, it lasts for 4 days. So that experience has been very educational for me and quite frankly, a lot of fun. It's very interesting to go to these events and see all these companies showing and displaying very interesting products and services. Usually it's been a pleasure to talk with them, to hear what they are doing. They are usually receptive to the work that I am doing with Taiwan Edge. So it's been a very friendly and a warm relationship with them.
Marcel joined forces with others.
Inside Taiwan is an AI-powered podcast that focuses mainly on the semiconductor and artificial intelligence industry and that very vital global supply chain. And it's a very high-quality product that I discovered. And so as soon as I heard it, I thought this is a project I would like to partner with, because I think they share the same objectives as my channel on YouTube, which is to make Taiwan known, better known around the world for its technological prowess. So I reached out to them and they were very open to the idea. They are two very intelligent Taiwanese women, very talented, and also very nice. And they immediately accepted the proposal of partnering. So now they are providing me with 2 episodes a week. So it's a summary of their a weekly summary of their podcast. One is done in English and one is done in Spanish. And so the founders of Inside Taiwan accepted this idea, and we started last week, and that has been very rewarding. I have received many positive comments about the podcast, both in Spanish and in English, and I'm very happy about that.
My name is Kimmy. I'm an entrepreneur, and then I started a couple different company, and then right now the project I'm working on is a AI automation media content generation solution. Okay, and then start with Inside Taiwan, and then through these projects, we are trying to bridge the gap between what the needs that the foreigners want to learn more about Taiwan's semiconductor industry. So we came up with this idea, and then start to working on this idea 2 months before, and then right now we release more than 40 episodes, and then also have the very experienced journalists like Marcel approach us, and then share some of the very interesting view that we can work together, and then to expand Inside Taiwan this channel from English speaking channel to also cover Spanish audience as well. Yeah, I think Marcel bring this idea that also help us to think, okay, if we want to serve more audience interest, what other topic we can also include. I think Marcel bring a very good idea that are I mean, from the foreigner and also a journalist point of view, what other topics can have like the Spanish audience also interesting. So yeah, so we will start from that conversation. Further, we will cover not only semiconductor, but also the startup and also other high-tech, high-profile companies' performance and in their strategy, etc.
Marcel and Kimmy both agreed that Taiwan needs to be known for more than semiconductors. Here is why they think it's important.
It's important for any country that its key industries and flagship companies are well known for the quality of their product. I mean, if you think of Japan, everyone knows that Sony, for example, or Yamaha, just to name two, everybody knows that those are Japanese companies, and they associate their high quality and their reputation for good service with Japan. The same goes for companies in the United States or in Korea. Samsung, for example, everybody knows that it's a Korean company, South Korean company. By the same logic, I think it is important that people are aware that these companies I mentioned before and many others are from Taiwan and not from any other place, you know?
For the countries, I think it's better to have the variety of strong industry, not just the semiconductors, right? So I think since we do have other industries is also strong, and then Taiwan has a very good like technology talents, a very good technology talent pool. why we like really like promote through that angle too. You know, because previously I worked with a couple different multinational software technology company, and then I get to learn that the technology talent pool like in Taiwan is really good. Okay, so that's why we also attract like other countries, for example, like Japan or Singapore or other countries come to Taiwan to set up their R&D center. But we don't have, I mean, honestly, like from the software industry, we don't have a well-known brand like coming from Taiwan to the world yet. Since I'm working in the software industry so long, yeah, I have this ambition. Want to let like the world see, okay, that Taiwan is not only a semiconductor but also other very good strong industry as well.
This begs the question, why wasn't it already done? Why is the rest of Taiwan's economy being ignored in global narratives?
What people hear about Taiwan is mostly the news related to its geopolitical situation. And that means, of course, the cross-strait tensions with China. That is very much in the news. And the other reason is that for which Taiwan is well known is TSMC and semiconductors, which is of course a very important industry, and TSMC is a key company in the global supply chain. So it's only fair and right that it's very famous. But so many other companies also do amazing work and are not known as Taiwanese companies. I also believe that many of those companies, for marketing reasons, I suppose, don't exactly advertise the fact that they are Taiwanese.
Of course, the semiconductor is well known, right? But the second largest industry in Taiwan is manufacturing. The manufacture for the high value and also high customized fine product. Like in my previous working experience, I have the privilege to work with the manufacturing industries that in Taichung. Okay, there's a Taichung Technology Park, a theme park there, and then there's a kind of the supply chains in Taichung area. And then I kind of get this feeling that our manufacturer company usually tend to play low profile because we have this mindset that are because we are manufacturer for other brand, right? Then it's better to sit behind that brand. Yeah, because we you know like if the man as a manufacturers, if you like too high profile, and then it's easier for the customer you serve feel challenged, feel not feel good because they may think, okay, maybe someday you're gonna build your own brand, for example, and then you know all those manufacturing process and then have the lower cost than the brand. So I think there's a mindset for the manufacturer industry that okay, let's keep it the low file. We don't do marketing. We don't do too much promotion, but we work very loyal with our current customers.
To conclude, we asked both Marcel and Kimmy what their advice is on how to present Taiwan's economy to global audiences.
From my perspective, I don't think it's like can be done by a small team like previously without AI. Okay, because I think of course if we want to promote our industry or our products to the broader audience, the language barrier, the language is somehow still a barrier. But with AI right now, that reduce like so much barriers, like from the content generation, from the language translation, and even from the research. Lots of stuff can being possible like nowadays, like driven by AI. So I think no matter what content and what product you want to speak louder to the world, you can leverage the generative AI a lot.
There are so many companies, big, medium, and small, that are doing very interesting work in the innovation space, that it's difficult to choose, you know? It's the tyranny of choice. I'm very reluctant to give advice to the Taiwanese authorities or to Taiwanese companies or anybody really. I think the promotion of a company or a country should be upfront. I mean, companies from other countries don't exactly market themselves with the flag up front, with their flag up front, you know. Nonetheless, they don't hide it either. It's not a piece of information that it's difficult to find. I think Taiwanese companies should do the same, probably not go out in the world saying we are Taiwanese as the most important part of their speech, but that is a piece of information that is relevant to consumers, to investors, to the public in general. You know, like I said, everybody knows where Samsung is from. Everybody knows where Sony is from, or where Facebook is from, or Tesla, or all those companies, and or Renault in France. So I don't see why the fact that a company that makes very high-end products in whatever industry, it should be kind of a mystery where it's from, you know. So really, I don't know what they should do, but I would like for them to put that information, or to give that information the space that it deserves, like companies from other countries do.
On other news in and around Taiwan, President Chen has inaugurated a new cloud computing center in Tainan as part of Taiwan's sovereign AI strategy. The facility houses the Nano 4 supercomputer and is part of a wider plan to turn Taiwan from just a hardware hub into an AI leader. The Asian Development Bank has raised its forecast for Taiwan's 2025 GDP growth from 5.1% to 7.3%. This is the biggest upward revision among its emerging Asia members. Taiwan is now projected as the second fastest growing economy in the region after Vietnam. And finally, Foxconn announced it will invest around $500 million to build a new headquarter complex in Kaohsiung. This includes offices, commercial space, and a residential tower. The hub will focus on smart city projects, EVs, batteries, and AI application software. Have a nice week and talk to you soon in Taiwan versus the world.